It is Sunday night. We are talking baseball here on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Got a special guest, and hey, who knew? Rafael Devers is not going to have to retire from baseball. Baseball's a long season. We'll be talking all of it next on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Happy Sunday night, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am Scott Jenstad with a special guest tonight. We have the wonderful Paul Sporer, who you probably know from his work at Fangraphs, all this podcast that he's on. I'll let him introduce himself in a second here, but appreciate Paul jumping on. Jeff Erickson's out of the state this week, so we're going to do that. If you could please rate and review the podcast, we appreciate that. That goes a long way just helping people find the podcast, all that kind of good stuff. Paul, Appreciate you jumping on. Always a special gift when you get to do it and jump in and talk baseball. How is everything with you?
Things are going well, man. I appreciate you inviting me on. Great to be on. Obviously, I love watching the show on Sundays. I do. The trade-off, though, that is a real trade-off here. To be on it, I don't get to enjoy my Sunday night, come down of hanging out at, watching you and Jeff. So that's all right. I will sacrifice for the team, and hopefully I can fill in admirably here.
We very much appreciate that, and we'll no doubt do that. Why don't you let everybody know? I'm sure everybody that would possibly listen to this knows who you are, but for people that don't or might not know where to find your stuff, give us a quick rundown where we can find all your good info.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Sporer. I'm on Blue Sky as well with Sporer, and then RotoWire, or excuse me, I'm on RotoWire right now.
You are.
Rotographs, which is the roto side of Fangraphs, but it's a little confusing, so don't go to rotographs.com. That's not a real website. Go to fantasy.fangraphs.com. I do the sleeper and the bust thrice weekly with Justin Mason, once a week with Joe Rico. I keep my my daily SP chart there, which I'm getting in the routine of again. And we were talking offline, like it's barely been a week, but It feels like in some ways it feels like we're mid-season, and in other ways it feels like it's not even been barely a week. So it's a weird time of year.
It is, because I'm at the point, I agree with you. I'm like, at the point where I'm ready to drop all these players. And then I'm like, I don't even know who's on my team yet. So right. It's the weird in between of not knowing what's going on, but thinking you kind of know everything. And I joked about Devers at the top. Baseball is so insanely long. If Devers had that, I get the strikeouts were crazy, but if he had that stretch in the middle of the year, we'd probably barely notice. We'd probably
barely.
But 4-4 tonight. He's up to 270 or something like that already. So I think we can call off the dogs on Devers right now.
Yeah, we twist ourselves into pretzels. And listen, early content creation is difficult.
Yeah.
Because you're looking for things to talk about. But I'm sorry, I can't get too deep on a superstar. Over 20 plate appearances is what it was. I truly couldn't have cared less. I know there's some shoulder, there are some global concerns, but those were there during draft season. They're not exacerbated by the 20 plate appearances. And I'm not just saying it now because he went, 4 for 5 tonight or whatever, but you just don't worry about a guy like that a weekend. Ever.
Yeah, and a guy that missed almost all spring training, and a guy that the price was factored in. I mean, his ADP was different based on what it was if he had been playing all spring training. So it was all factored in. But so that's a good segue, though. We talk about superstars, and I'm with you. Talking about superstars at this point is kind of silly, but hyped young guys who start out slow, this matters. You may get guys that lose some at bats, lose some playing time, get set down. We saw Jordan Beck in Colorado, who was kind of hypey last weekend. People were picking him up. He got sent down today. But a couple of guys I wanted to ask you about. I'm curious what your thoughts are kind of going forward. Some guys that were hyped in the preseason. First is Cam Smith with the Astros. Made the team out of spring training, has been pretty brutal so far. I think he sat today or yesterday, but he started to lose a little playing time. Hit a $111. 42% K rate is really high. What are your thoughts on Smith? Do you think you think the leash is long? Do you think they may send him down for a little bit? What are your thoughts on where we're going here? Because he was moving up boards about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, he was, and I get that, and I'm okay taking that sort of gamble. Also, understanding that it is probably going to be a quick hook, and I don't think he has a ton of time here. I do think that if we don't see some things here in the next week or so from Cam Smith, there is a strong chance that he gets sent out. They wrote a hot spring, see if the guy has it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And I don't think it's a huge indictment of Cam Smith in general. I get it. I get why they tried it. Volpe could have gone this way in his first season. In fact, didn't he struggle out of the gate after his big spring training, if I recall correctly? Sometimes these guys just aren't quite ready. They stuck with Volpe. That's right. That's what it was in his first season. They stuck with him, which to the Yankees' credit, I was actually really impressed that they did. And part of it was that he was bringing great defense at shortstop. So that gives you something to really tangibly clutch onto. You can only make such an impact in right field, and I'm not sure that Cam Smith is necessarily doing that. So no, I think this is a short leash. Stick with him right now. I don't think you have to cut preemptively, but be ready to cut literally next week. Like if he gets demoted, I think it's a cut for me for Cam Smith, even if you invested like a 16th rounder or something.
In a 15-team main event sort of thing. You think he's a drop if he gets sent
If
down?
I have any other unusable player right now, whether it's another prospect stash you're holding like Roman Anthony or something, or an injury guy, yes, I do think it would be a cut at that point. Just understanding, hey, I took a shot. I knew it was, the $1 scratch off. It didn't come through, and I move on. And I don't even mind at the price that was paid for Cam Smith. It would be a quick move, but it's the kind of guy that you stick and move on. I don't know that you need to hold him because you think they're really going to just send him down for 10 days, Scott? Like it seems like you got to send him down at that point to really get his feet under him, not for something quick. So I think Cam Smith would be a cut.
He's got to get sent down and hit for like a month, and I think they bring him back.
Exactly.
It's one of those things. And if he doesn't hit right away, like could be longer than that too. I mean, they, the Astros offense before today had been a mess. We'll talk about that in a little bit. They've been really struggling. They scored 9 or 10 runs today, so they really kind of broke out a little bit. But a little bit higher up the draft board was Dylan Cruz in Washington. He did have a good game today, 2 hits and a stolen base, but he was hitting. He was in a $140 or an 040 coming today. Not even a $140. He's 040 coming in today. Got the average up to 103. So we're on the move. But how long do you think the leash is here? Obviously, a huge, massive prospect for the Nationals. They seem pretty committed to him. I think his leash is probably longer than Smith's, but it's not super long either.
No, I don't think it's endless, but I do think it is longer for Dylan Cruz than Cam Smith. And I'm going to stick with him. Full disclosure, very big on Dylan Cruz coming into the year. Got him in some leagues, picked him as my NL Rookie of the Year. So off to a brutal start. But that's not why I think he's got the leash here. I think his prospect status, where they are as a team, they can afford to kind of commit here a little bit. He's batting down in the order. Give him some time here. But I don't know that it's necessarily going to be a full month if it stays at this clip. It could end up being about 3 weeks if we don't start to see a turn. If today's kind of the fire starter to at least turn things around a little bit, and he's more in like the 70, 80 range of WRC plus as opposed to the negative 70 that he's currently in, then I think Dylan Cruz can buy himself some time. But if he is still trending in the negatives or in the single digits, 3-4 weeks in, I do think it's a send down at that point. Let him get his feet. Now he could be a quick one. So Dylan Cruz is probably somebody I wouldn't cut because I think it could be a quick 2 weeks. Boom, he unlocks something and then he's immediately back. So I'm more reluctant to cut Cruz. Obviously team context would depend, but I'd be trying to keep him, whereas I'd be probably basically trying to cut Cam Smith.
It's funny you mentioned the WRC. When I was looking at his page today, I actually saw that, and I just assumed it was like an error. And I look, it was actually minus 71. That's crazy.
That's terrible.
That is a nutty number right there.
Yeah, when you strike out, I mean, not only that, too, 46% strikeout, 4% walk for Dylan Cruz. Cam Smith at least has a 10% walk rate to kind of bring things up there. He's at a 15 WRC plus himself. So, yeah, there's some wretched numbers. And then the next guy that you're going to bring up is even another jump up the ladder here.
Yeah, so I kind of went backwards ADP-wise to start out. But the third one here is someone that was really hyped. He's like an 8th round pick. I have him in one of my 2 main event teams. Mark Vientos in New York has been really struggling. He was 1 for 4 today, struck out, had 1 strikeout, 1 walk. He's hit a $118. He got over 100 today. But interesting enough with him, the strikeouts have not been the issue. He's at a 21.5% strikeout rate, actually down like 8% for last year. The problem is he's not hitting the ball hard. He was a 46.5% hard hit guy last year. He's at under 30%. I know it's been 9 games. I fully get that, but not hitting the ball hard. Barrel rate's about 8%. Walk rate's down a little bit. His BABIP's 125. So we're obviously seeing some stuff here, but I was curious how long you think the leash is on Vientos. Is there any chance he gets sent down? They seem pretty committed to him. He's hitting 5th. If Nimmo hits 4th, whatever they line up there. But do you think there's any risk of him getting sent to the minors?
Not for a while. I'd be surprised based on the way this setup is here for Vientos and his struggles. Again, -9 on the WRC plus, sure. but it's really looking like the hits just aren't falling yet. The power hasn't quite clicked in, like you said, and some of those numbers can stabilize quickly to have some meaning. So I'm not gonna hand wave all of it for Vientos. I just think it's something that they're going to let him try to play through a bit.
Yeah.
I had some skepticism on him coming into the season, but I'm by no means thinking that, this is why I avoided him after 8 games, because there's nothing here. In fact, like you said, the number one thing I worried about, which was the strikeouts, because his plate skills aren't great, aren't there. So it'd be foolhardy for people that weren't in on Vientos to cash their check already. Not just because it's 8 games and you just look really stupid, but also because the fundamentals of why Vientos is struggling right now are not the reasons that people were fading him. So I'm holding here very firmly. I'm picking him up if anybody cuts him. I know in some shallow leagues he probably is getting cut. I bet he pops up in some 10-teamers. I think I'd scoop here and see where it goes, because again, if that power clicks in, that BABIP's going to go way up. And again, it's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. If this happens in June, we might notice because he's a Met and he's a pretty prominent youngster, and they'd be like, Vientos struggling his last 8 games, but we would barely care. But because it's the first 8, we want to make all these big points about it. You got to play through it, and I think he's got at least 30 games, a month here solidly before the Mets would really start pushing away from him. The only thing I could see totally flipping it maybe is if Acuna just got electric hot.
Yeah.
And then they could create some avenues for him to get in. That's the only thing I could really see. Otherwise, I think they trust Vientos here.
One Mark Vientos drop in the RotoWire online championship tonight. So there was a drop in the 12-teamer. Someone added Edmundo Sosa and dropped.
Wouldn't do that. I'm sorry. That's not for me. And I know 12-teamers, you got to be quicker. Yeah. And that's part of why I don't play 10s and 12s, is I like to be a little bit more patient. And I do respect that it's a different format. But I still think with Vientos, I could understand a Cam Smith preemptive cut. Probably not a Cruz, because I am so hot on him. But with Vientos, I'm not there. There's just not enough yet that doesn't just scream like, hey, his power stroke hasn't clicked in, and the BABIP's just low right now. That's all I'm seeing.
Yeah, I agree. And the strikeout thing is what really jumped out to me. If he was like at 37% or something, I think I'd start to be a lot more worried. I think I'm good for a while. I think the Mets are going to be good for a while too. I think that he, 27 home runs last year. He showed them enough that I think the leash is pretty long. I'd go definitely way longer than Smith, and I go a little bit longer than Cruz too.
Fully agree.
But some interesting guys, and baseball's tough, hitting's hard. Like but again, you mentioned before, it's been a week and a half. We've been 10 days. You go 4 for 4 and 2 for 4 the next night, and all of a sudden your average jumps 100 points. We were talking about before, like standings move so much. I was like way up there in the main event, and I had one bad day and I dropped 100 places.
Immediately 100 places, and you're like, geez.
It's so disgusting. I was trying to figure out, am I going to, is the closing run here? I'm in the top 10. And all of a sudden, I looked up and I was at 143, and I'm like,
let me map out my September. Oh, wait.
Yeah, exactly,
now I'm 161st.
Let's talk about some good stories so far. First one is Jesus Luzardo came in and shut down the Dodgers this weekend. He's made 2 starts, looking really good so far. 12 innings, 41% strikeout rate, 1.5 ERA, WHIP under 1. Were you in on Luzardo coming into this year? How do you feel about these first 2 starts? Because he's looked electric so far.
I was not super strong on him. I was probably just at kind of market value, and if it landed, it landed. I liked that they were getting him. I thought that was a really sharp pickup, and they didn't get him for nothing. Starlin Caba is a real prospect. I thought that was a nice win-win trade, which is tough to see in division. It's tough to give a quality, known commodity pitcher who's dealt with injuries for sure, but the Marlins had to do that and then see him extra times there being in division, and then Caba could, of course, emerge big time as a Marlin and end up, burning them down the road. But no, this looks like it's a really strong pickup. I think it's really always been about the health, though.
Yeah.
Can Luzardo stay healthy? Because if he can, the talent is absolutely there. He's coming off a wretched season. I can damn near wash that away, though. It's part of the mix, but it's part of why he cost what he cost. So as far as like double counting it and now still holding it over Luzardo, I'm not going to do that. That's that ever-present risk with him. His injury risk is a little bit more heightened than other starters for Luzardo, but the talent is immense, and I'm starting to believe, that, again, if you can guarantee me some health, I think he can be a really strong pitcher. Not a 150, 092 ERA whip, but like a low 3s, solid whip, and a boatload of Ks. The 41% K rate, of course, is high, but I think he's somebody who could track 30 again, which he did for 100 innings back in 2022. I like Luzardo.
Yeah, I mean, he was 3.32, 104 in 2022. And even 2023, the 1 year he threw a full.
That was still good.
Still good. 3.58, 121, 28% strikeout rate that year, 14% swing and strike rate. Still really, really good. I agree with you. I kind of tossed out last year as well. The Marlins are a mess. He wasn't healthy. His strand rate was really low. He had some bad luck in there. So I kind of tossed that out too. Still had a 14% swing strike rate last year. Like still got a lot of swing and miss. So I'm excited for Luzardo. Obviously, as a former A's fan, when he came up in the system, he was the guy. Like he was the guy that I thought was going to really break out. Just could never get healthy. I'd love to see him do really well. Philly seems like a really good spot for him.
Yeah, I think it could be amazing. And think about how electric their playoff rotation can get now.
Yeah.
They got to get to the finish line, right? We're talking, again, we'll probably reiterate it 4 or 5 more times this episode. We're 10 days in. But, if you do start to project that health and what it could look like with the 2 lefties and the 2 righties there, Nola, Wheeler, Luzardo, Sanchez in some order, that could be really, really sharp if they can get them to October healthy.
You're not putting Taijuan Walker in the playoff rotation?
I love Taijuan Walker, so I don't want to hear the bad words, but I understand who Taijuan Walker is. When you love a player, you fully understand their flaws. I love that he dealt in his debut, but I can tell you I put $0 on him. I know we're going to talk about him later, but as much as I love Taijuan Walker, I still need to see more. So if people jumped on him this week, good luck to you. I'll pick him up when you cut him later.
There you go. I like it. Another good one. Someone that did get some buzz in the offseason was moving up in drafts. A lot of people saw the reliever numbers last year and pretty fired up. Is Chris Bubic in Kansas City. Another really good start today. 6 2/3, 1 earned run, 5 hits and a walk, 8 strikeouts. That's back-to-back really good starts for Bubic. He was getting some buzz. I mean, last year was mostly as a reliever, but it was a high strikeout rate in the small number of innings, 30 innings last year, but 32% strikeout rate, way up from his years as a starter. So the question was, could that translate back to being a starter? Did he figure something out, or was just being a reliever? So far, so good as the transition back to starting.
Yeah, Bubic zipped up my board as we got deeper into March, and he was somebody I was actually targeting there in those late rounds. Really have been impressed with what we've seen. Don't forget, we saw a little taste of this for 3 starts. Now it's 3 starts, right? So how much can you really put into it? But then he got the TJ. It was like, oh man, before we could even see if there was any legitimacy. But then he tacks on 30 innings last year out of the bullpen, but it was those same sorts of skills with a more reliever strikeout rate than a starter strikeout rate. And then a good spring to go on top of it. So again, we were dealing with small samples, but now it was spread out over 3 years, and we were seeing the walk rate really tamped down, the strikeout rate up, and Bubic really delivering some solid swing and miss stuff. So I'm bought in. I'm very excited about this. These 2 starts here, he's probably still available in 10s and 12s. I imagine this week was probably a big pickup week for him. But I hope that people that can still bid, if you have like midnight bid or something, I would get in on Bubic where available, and I'm riding this out. I love what KC's got going on. They put up great defense behind these guys. It's a solid place to pitch. It is actually an offensive park, but it doesn't exacerbate homers. So I'll let him worry about the hit suppression. I like that it doesn't improve homers. Really like Chris Bubic.
Yeah, I do too. He was, was one of those. You can't really get sniped in the 19th or 20th round.
True,
but
exactly.
You're still at the point where you wait all the way for it to come all the way around, and someone picks him right in front of you. It still feels like you got sniped.
Those hurt more though than like the 4th round snipes that you could legitimately say, I never got a chance to pick Wilson Contreras or whatever. But
and even then, you like a 4th round, you have someone else you want. Like a 19th round, you're like, I have one guy left I want.
Maybe that's why it stings so much.
Just don't say his name out loud. You're like staring at the guy next to you, especially live. You're like, don't say his name out loud. If you're online, you just don't want his face to pop up.
You just can't believe, too. You're like, how is somebody thinking the exact same thing I am right now? That's unbelievable. And I had a few times because I streamed my mains where my queue went 5 in a row right before me. Like literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm like, how did somebody hack my computer?
It's always fun when you get to the point where you have 4 guys left and there's only 3 picks left. When you finally get under that number, you're like, all right, we're good. Take whoever you want. Take whoever you want. I'm good. But yeah, when you have like 3 guys, there's 3 picks left, they're coming. It's brutal. Mentioned before about the Astros offense. This one kind of went away a little bit because they scored 9 runs today. Jordan Alvarez broke out a little bit, hit the 2-run homer to win the game. But look at this lineup, man. Aside from Altuve, the batting averages here are brutal. Paredes had 4 hits today, so he's up over 200 now. But Jordan's still at 182. Christian Walker's at 194. Jeremy Payne is down to 161. Yainer Diaz 0 for 5 today. He scored 9 runs. Yainer Diaz 0 for 5, 077. Some rough stuff in here. Is there anybody you're worried about at all in this offense? Again, I know it's 10 days. We're going to say that over and over. But is there anybody you're like, you know what? I need to see some coming around pretty quick because I'm a little bit worried because this offense as a whole has been struggling.
It has been, but it did last year, and it did for a long time last year. And I got bought in on it. I started seeing some of those historical numbers. No team that's been 19-32 or whatever the heck their record was has rallied back. And I was like, yeah, that is a really tough hole that they're digging themselves in. You know, I thought Texas would be better, of course, too. So that was part of it.
I was going to say they're in the right division for it.
Yeah, and I'm not going to quit them. I came in pretty hot on this team. My boy Brendan Rodgers is one of the lone bright spots. I can't quit that guy. I actually didn't get him in either main because he got sent out late in spring there because it looked like they were going to go with Mauricio Dubon, but now here he is playing and actually doing well. But no, I don't worry about any of these guys in trade leagues. I'd be seeking them all out. And here's the thing. I would pay full market, but don't start there, obviously. Work your way up.
Yep.
But I would still pay the full freight on Diaz, Walker, Pena, Paredes, who I loved coming into the year. Of course, Alvarez. I know that means your second round pick, so you don't necessarily have to. But I'm saying I take any discount I can get, but I would also still pay full market if that's where the negotiations worked up to.
I agree. I wasn't in on Yainer to start the year, so I probably wouldn't pay up there. But I mean, the only thing that worries me a little bit is the strikeouts are up on him. I want to see that come down pretty quick here. He's like 9% higher than last year, so he's striking out a little bit again. Where it was small sample here, but slugging under 100, hard contacts down. He only has 1 RBI. He has no runs scored on the year, which is kind of a crazy
Maybe Diaz, with all of that working against him, would be the easiest to get a discount because he also doesn't have the lengthiest track record. So maybe he's the one you can get 2-3 rounds and then you swoop in because that's where I'd be. I didn't love him. I had other catchers I liked. I was big on the Contreras brothers, even though they just kept going higher and higher in every draft.
Yeah.
But I think Diaz at a real 2-3 plus round discount, that's where I would jump in.
Yeah, that's a good point there. A couple of later guys who really started out well, especially with stolen bases. Nico Hoerner, 6 stolen bases for the Cubs. He was injured, did not play in the Japan game, start the series. I think his price went down a little bit. I think he's one of those guys you're not getting any power out of him, but man, 6 stolen bases already. He's hitting after today. He's hitting 361, and also Johnny DeLuca in Tampa. Playing a lot, hitting over 400. He's got 4 stolen bases. You feel like either of those guys has some staying power. Obviously, Horner's done it before. He had 43 bags in 2023. Along with probably gonna get 8-10 home runs, pretty consistently in that range. But how do you feel about these two guys? Kind of some later guys who are really helping the stolen base category so far.
Big fan of both, actually. Nico Hoerner was on my team last year, and it wasn't quite what I was maybe hoping for. A little more average. He had only 273, but it was very much in the realm of his outcomes there. I just saw that chat you posted.
There are some people who are really loving your background.
I'm glad they're enjoying it. But it was very much in his range of outcomes, so I didn't have any problem with the returns I got on Nico Hoerner. He was still firmly on my board. And you are absolutely right. After the Tokyo series, I do lament sometimes when it pushes my guys up. Famously Roberto Suarez last year. I whined about it all year. But sometimes it pushes guys down, and his absence, and Mookie Betts, of course, with the sickness and losing all the weight. But Nico Hoerner's absence did push him down a little bit. I was unable to cash in, but it was more just because I was doing other things, basically getting other positions, and then he'd go. But I do like him. I do believe in him, and I still think there's a full season of 300 plus in there. He's hitting 313 right now. I think he can sustain that with all the SBs, and that's a good team. DeLuca was a late round target for me. I got him in a few different leagues. I figured they're going to kind of commit to him. Yes, he's a righty, so you think, okay, susceptible to platoon, but you can't run 9 platoons. They can only do so many out there, and I did think that DeLuca was somebody, because of his center field defense, that they were going to trust enough to not really platoon him, and I didn't know who they're necessarily going to put. Seems like maybe Caballero maybe could get burned out there, but I think it's been DeLuca every game, except for Cameron Meisner playing center today. So this is the first, and Monday. Okay, so he's had twice this week, but for what you paid for DeLuca, which was a number that started with the 2s as far as the round, somebody who's playing 4 out of 6, I'm okay with that, with the speed and power, because he has a little power too, a little bit.
Question in the chat, kind of someone that fits in this range. How do you feel about Isaiah Kiner-Falefa? Obviously, the Pirates are running a ton. We talked about it last week. They were like way above everybody else in stolen bases. Obviously, O'Neal Cruz has 7, I think, already. But Kiner-Falefa is at hit 323. He's got 4 stolen bases himself. Playing almost every day. So he's got 10 games played, so pretty much has played every game. Are you in on IKF at all this year?
No, because I'm just not usually in on like pure rabbits. I guess he does cut more of like a Timu version of Nico Horner as I'm looking at it. If he's going to run like this.
Did you just call him the Timu version of Nico Horner? That is beautiful. That's a beautiful line.
Because he's got 8 homers 2 different times. Nico Horner doesn't bring a ton of pop, and the batting average is lower. And he's never really stolen 43 like Horner has. But again, we've seen guys that he could jump from 11 to 40. The way Pittsburgh's running, and if IKF can stay healthy and hit at least 260, I think he can steal 40. So yeah, actually, I'm a little bit more in as I see more. I thought he was more of like the 2 to 3 homer guy. It might not sound like a big difference, but that's 6 to 8 instead of 2 to 3. It really, those extra homers, they really do help. So I'm a little bit more in, especially as a pickup. When you're talking about draft capital, I was never really in on IKF this year, but as a pickup, it's a different ballgame. So yeah, I do give him at least a thumb sideways, if not a full thumbs up.
And I think stolen bases or where team context really does get into play. Like there are such things as pure green lights, and there's some teams who don't think they're going to be very good, and they're letting guys run, and that matters. I mean,
and this matters this early too. Like this stabilizes pretty quickly. It was probably evident in spring. That is one of the stats that people that have researched it have said sticks is SB volume. Even if you're not successful, if you try 7 times in spring and you go 3 safe, 4 caught, that's still a positive sign because you're running.
Quick question for you, Paul. Since we're talking about Chris Bubich earlier, would you drop Yusei Kikuchi or Taj Bradley for Chris Bubich?
Probably Kikuchi. I'm a noted Kikuchi hater.
I'm a noted Taj Bradley lover, so definitely
I love Bradley.
On that one. I
Same.
love Taj.
And
I think I might do it for Kikuchi. I don't love pitchers going to Anaheim.
No, I don't either. And that was a big part of it was like, yes, he did great with Houston, one of the best teams at pitcher development. Right. And it just felt so Tyler Anderson-y. Now, he has a higher floor than Anderson. I will grant that.
Yes.
But it just felt like that same sort of vibe where he's going to go to LA and kind of lose it. So, yeah, I'd go for Bubich over Kikuchi.
Does Austin Riley fit in the superstar you're not worried about after 10 days? Yep. Are you concerned about any concern at all here? Because I don't really have any myself.
No, I don't. And again, I do think it is, that Devers sort of vibe of all-star superstar that you can trust. He's got, 3 years on the board now. I think we got to ride this out. And nowhere near panicking for Atlanta specifically. So they're going to give him plenty of time. I wouldn't even look at it right now. Yes, his strikeouts are up. There are reasons, it's a bad streak, but this is very classic. If it was in July, we'd barely care. I promise on that.
I agree completely on that one. He's hitting the ball hard too. Got 24% barrel rate. Like the home run's going to come. He's pissed at himself, which I kind of like. He knows he's struggling. He's going to be fine. How do you feel about Yohan Duran today? Coming in to face 8-9-1 in the 8th inning. Any concern there? Or are we just dealing with Rocco Baldelli being Rocco Baldelli?
I think that is the right way to put it, which is maddening and honestly a cited reason for some of the faders of Duran. They said they just didn't want to deal with that. And there you go. They're proven right here early on. And this happens sometimes. I wouldn't panic. Hopefully when you took Duran, you realized that you were getting the A guy, but that didn't necessarily mean the same as other A guys.
Yep.
Jax is going to get his. Cole Sands might scoop 3 randomly, even when Duran's available. That's just part of the game. You take it for all the goodness that he brings. It's fine.
Yeah, I was like, oh, maybe he came in to face the middle of the order. I was like, no.
First thing I thought too.
Complete opposite, yeah.
I was like, oh, this will be 3, 4, 8-9-1. Okay, interesting.
A guy we'll talk about probably more in FAAB where he was available, but Zac Veen got called up by the Rockies this evening. So they're sending Jordan back down. We mentioned that a little bit earlier. Were you in on Veen? It was kind of a late break. It was like 5:30 or 6 o'clock Pacific time, maybe an hour and a half before FAAB when the news broke. And any people that do FAAB stuff, we're putting some content out the last half hour here with some price thoughts and all that. Where are you on Zac Veen? Obviously, a big prospect. He's the first round pick in 2020 of the Rockies, 9th overall. Got a big bonus. And he's 11 home runs, 21 stolen bases at 260 in the minors last year. Are you big on Veen? Obviously, he's rolling into Coors Field. That always helps. But where was your bidding on him if he's available anyway? You had some leaks.
Absolutely nowhere near where it had to be.
Yeah.
He went 185 with a 157 backup in my main. And I was like, oh, Sam Hilliard has more juice than I thought here. Interesting. Wow. I do like him. Interesting player. You give me some power speed in Coors, I'm in. But go look at Sam Hilliard's plate skills and look at Zac Veen's and tell me what's really different. Now, obviously, Sam Hilliard's 31 and Zac Veen's young and he can improve.
Right.
He doesn't quite strike out that much. But I think when you're striking out at a over 25% clip in the minors, you are very much a possibility to strike out at 30% in the majors. And that's what Sam Hilliard did. So There can be some heat there because there is fantasy production and Coors Field rules, and I'm always going to be down for a Rocky, but this was already paying for somebody that's like done something, and I couldn't do that. I was nowhere near. I was double digits, like 10% of these bids here at 185, 157. I had him at 17.
Oh, I was higher than that, but I was nowhere near where he was going. He was actually not available in my leagues. He was not one. He was held, and the one he was not drafted at all. I drafted the day before, and he'd already
he'll be drafted next week.
Yeah, he'll be big next
or
week.
Bid
obviously,
next week.
Yeah, whatever he does will be obviously a major factor. But obviously, if he was drafted early and then dropped because he didn't make the team, he was available, and he was picked up in like looking at like 20 leagues. High was 333. He only went double digits in one league. He went for 77 in one main event, but up to 333. No surprise that Dalton Del Don was in on him for some big prices.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Over
Always
200
spending early.
Dalton loves to spend the money early. So
can I bring up somebody real fast?
Please do.
Because it's another prospect and we don't have him on the board. Roman Anthony was available in my league. And he was in 97% of mains. So I don't know if that means one main is 3% or 2, but I was one of the 1 or 2.
Yep.
Question, what would you have put on him if you had a nice free stash spot for Roman Anthony?
That's a really good question. Probably about he's in the probably like about 117.
And you would have been absolutely exploded out of the water in my league.
Oh, how much did he go for?
318 to a 251 backup. Now,
yeah, I would not. I would not have been the winner there. What did you bid?
Nowhere near that. 38 again, 10%. Like I was just trying to like he's not called up, and I know Rafael's not performing well, but I was just trying to sneak him. I was like, okay, and he wasn't even my top guy, believe it or not. I prioritized the guys who are playing right now. So I had Kyron Paris higher and Tim Tawa. So I'm interested, but 318. I'm not 318 interested.
By the way, Christian Campbell's awesome.
Oh my God, he's so dope, and I really hope that like,
dude.
and he comes across like what do we know about anybody? We know what we see, but he comes across beautifully, like so mature, so put together. Like I was so impressed with Christian Campbell, and I'm rooting him on.
He is really, really good. He's going to be really fun for a lot of years. They've got the Red Sox have some studs coming up.
They are so unbelievably deep. We don't even ever talk about Marcelo Meyer. He is forgotten these days, and he would be the top prospect in several organizations.
They've got 3 absolute monsters coming up. It's pretty wild. So.
And they were able to trade 2 other monsters plus stuff in the Crochet deal. That's how rich they were. Braden Montgomery is a G. Kyle Teo is a G. White Sox did great in that trade, and the Red Sox are barely feeling it.
I love Braden Montgomery. I watched him at Stanford for a couple of years, and
I love him too.
Absolute beast. I love that he went to the SEC. He's like, I'm going to go play for A&M and ball out. It was fun. He's really good. He pitched at Stanford. He would come in and close games late in games too.
He's unreal, and
he throws like 95. He throws gas.
Maybe that'll be an avenue if I hope the hitting works out, but if the hitting doesn't work out, then he can go there. Even though he went to A&M, and I'm a Longhorn, so I have to dislike him. I loved him though, and I was crushed when he got hurt before the World Series.
It's like broke his wrist sliding home, right, or something.
And I was just such a fun player, and I'm like, how are you going to have a broken bone? What was his wrist or like? I don't know, but he got hurt right before the College World Series, coming off that season. He still got drafted high, and now he's a big White Sox prospect. I keep telling White Sox fans there is light at the end of the tunnel, believe it or not.
Yeah, I love Montgomery as well, too. So let's jump into some news and notes. We had a lot of guys kind of going down over the weekend. Before we get into FAAB, we'll do that quickly. But first, note from our sponsors at Vivid Seats. Finally, baseball is back. This MLB season, knock it out of the park with Vivid Seats and score great tickets to the biggest games of the year. Every fastball, every home run, every eye-popping play of your favorite team live and in person. Plus, with Vivid Seats rewards, you earn rewards for every single purchase. Just buy 10 tickets, then cash in your credit towards your free 11th ticket. Talk about an easy win. And here's a pro award tip. When buying tickets for the whole group, split the bill and make progress towards your free 11th ticket even faster. From behind the dugout to the upper deck, Vivid Seats has great tickets for all the 2025 games that matter to you. Just visit vividseats.com or download the app today. Vivid Seats. Experience it live. See vividseats.com/rewards for terms and conditions. So, Paul, we'll do a few news and notes here really quick. I do want to get into FAAB, but there were some big injuries. The first one was Victor Robles this afternoon. Actually, after I sent you this spreadsheet, made an unbelievable catch down the right field line at whatever we're calling it these days, AT&T, Pac-Bell. Is it Oracle now?
It's Oracle these days.
Oracle's always the Warriors arena to me, so I can't call it that either.
I feel you.
But he made a great catch, but as he extended, he hit the net, and it looked like essentially all his weight went on his shoulder. He was kind of holding his shoulder like he separated, but also holding his wrist like he hurt that. I don't think we have a report back, but man, it did not look good. And this kind of sucks for a guy who was a huge prospect. It flamed out pretty badly, but had a really good year last year for Seattle. Has started out, he's leading off for them. They seem to really like him there. This one bummed me out. I'm hoping it's not as bad as I think it is.
I'm worried that it is too. And it also bums me out. Long time Victor Robles fan, really rooting for this to work. Obviously, Seattle's such a tough place to hit that I could totally kind of see him going back down, in terms of production, but I'm just rooting. I'm rooting for him. So I really hope he's not hurt here, but it did look bad. I think it's almost certainly, in fact, I'm not even going to couch it. I think it's certainly going to go on the IL for this. Yeah. So we're at least going to be down 2 weeks till we figure out what's going on here. I just hope that we can escape with some good news. It just sucks, man, because you like to see a guy like this who's been around forever. Believe it or not, folks, only 28. If I told you 32, you wouldn't have flinched. He's 28. Yeah. Like, he's still in a potential growth phase, believe it or not. But yeah, I just really hope we get good news here. And if it is just a quick IL stint, that he can get back and at least be. He doesn't really even have to be a stud to be worth it to them. Like a 95 WRC plus, 5% worse than league average with great defense in center field. That is like a 3.5 win player. And that'd be more than worth what they paid for him. So I'm hoping that Victor Robles is okay, but it didn't look good.
Yeah, stole his third base today. John Morosi tweeted about half an hour ago. We're at about 8:30 Pacific on Sunday night that he's likely to go on the IL. They're still determining the severity of the injury. Dominic Canzone is among the options to be called up. So, I mean, it seems like we're going IL, like you said. I don't think that was very much in doubt, but I just hope it's not I hope it's a week's thing and not a month's thing, but I'm really worried about it.
Absolutely.
A few of those, Blake Snell, one of your favorite pitchers, just a freaking stud, went on the IL with a left shoulder inflammation. The Dodgers always are very cautious about this. They have no reason not to be cautious. How worried are you about this one?
Not really. I mean, if you didn't draft Blake Snell with this in mind, you're fooling yourself at that point. You have to go in eyes wide open, and I love Snell, and I was open to drafting him, and I was open to paying a premium, but you go in understanding this is part of the deal, that $180 is almost certainly the max, and you're probably not going to get there, and you kind of work from that structure. And if that's not the kind of player you want to draft, I totally get that, right? If you want to draft somebody that at least has the illusion of safety and you prefer those guys, I get that. It's not like Logan Webb can't get hurt, but he has put the pelts on the wall. He's got the innings, and I understand liking guys like that. I like a mix. I'll take a Snell, I'll take a Webb, but this is just part of the deal. And hopefully it's coming early, and it doesn't mean it can't come late. It's not like there's only one guaranteed and they're just using it right now. Right. But there's usually probably going to be 2 IL stints at some point for Snell. You're hoping they're not too dangerous. This seems like it's more precautionary because they can play the load management game.
Yep, for sure.
And that's just what I think it is here. I wouldn't cut him in any league whatsoever. You bought this when you bought the player.
Do you think Landon Knack is the obvious fill-in? He pitched 5 days before when Snell would have pitched on, which would be on the 8th. I think it was Tuesday. He pitched on whatever that was, the 3rd. You think they just kind of slide Knack into that spot? He started on 3rd in the minors, so it seems like it would make sense.
It just seems to be like the right fit. It's absolutely the right guy to spec for right now. And yes, let me get into the Dodgers rotation the best I can. So Knack was a target.
Yeah. Ivan Herrera, who has had a fantastic start to the season, left early with knee inflammation. There was no official report out, but during the 7th inning when they're interviewing Marmol on the ESPN telecast, he said that he's going to the IL. He said they don't think it's super long term, but enough that it's definitely an IL stint. This will bum me out too. I got a lot of Ivan Herrera, and he's been mashing so far.
He's been absolutely cooking. 3 homers in a single game, 4 on the season, hitting 4. Like, everything was coming together here. This stinks. You just hope it's not too bad. It says, could have been a lot worse. So it seems like they dodged a major bullet here, and this is what we're hoping for with Robles. It seems like we're getting the positive end right now with Herrera. Pedro Pages is at least a decent fill-in. So if you have Herrera, you can go for the immediate, backfill there. That's probably what I would do.
$8 in the main event. That's what I did. I like to hear you say it.
There you go. And that's not too bad for what's normally available for catching in a 15-teamer. I'll take Pages all day.
Yeah, I don't mean to besmirch Tigers legend Jake Rogers, but to give me Pages over Jake Rogers for sure.
100%.
Yeah. Matt McClain missed the weekend with some hamstring tightness. I saw this on Friday, took him out of my lineup. So I'm like, he's not playing this weekend. He did pinch hit on Friday. That's a good sign there. But this is one that I'm a little worried about. I need to see him in the starting lineup before I, kind of breathe out on this one.
I don't blame you because it's, early, but it's starting to look like maybe this is part of what you buy with Matt McClain now too. Yeah. Is this going to be a Royce Lewis, Byron Buxton type situation where we know the talent is sky high, but there always kind of seems to be that looming injury cloud that follows him. We'll see. I don't want to get too quick on that draw there. It was a missed year last year. Doesn't mean it's going to carry over, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm not going to preemptively do it. If I don't get word before lock tomorrow, and I think we're still in the zone of Monday day games here at the beginning of the year, and some
has anybody not had their home opener yet?
No, I think everyone's had, but my Tigers they moved up the games because inclement weather's coming. So they moved the next few games to the day. So that's not 5 degrees when they're playing. So if your league is one of those that locks at first game, first off, get them to change it. But also, if you don't have news on McLean, don't start him because I think that we're leaning negative here, at least in terms of some more games missed. And I don't want to take zeros.
Yeah, Yankees-Tigers has moved it to 12-10. That's a good call right there. That's the only pure dig in tomorrow. That sucks for the Tigers, though, man. Losing Yankee night game attendance is brutal.
Yes, absolutely, especially because if it's because of bad weather, who's going to come out in the middle of the day in the bad weather still? Like, Tigers fans are loyal. They'll have like a decent pack there, but you know where they won't be? Right behind the home plate there where they're trying to fill those luxury seats. And they might have been with some temperate weather against the Yankees.
Those people aren't showing up for the day game at 41 degrees.
No shot.
Speaking of the Yankees, former Yankee Nestor Cortez going on the 15-day IL for a left elbow strain. It was weird because there was a quote that, like, I'm hoping it's not long-term. There's also a quote that I'm seeking a second opinion.
Which always is terrifying.
You don't go for a second opinion if the first one was not too bad. So I'm a little worried that this one might be worse than they're leading on at the moment.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, he did have the classic veteran bounce back after the mega dud. You're freaking out because he gets up 8 runs. Listen, if you started him at Yankee Stadium, you did it to yourself. And I say that as a Nestor Cortez fan. And no shot I was starting him there. But against Cincinnati, bounce back, 6 scoreless, 1 hit. So you got to feel pretty good there that at least it wasn't an injury that was maybe prevalent during that game. But yeah, there is some concern here. I think I'm going to hold out and see where it goes in like a 15-teamer. And that's probably the only spot that Cortez is heavily rostered. I don't know that he's super rostered in 12s and 10s anyway, but if he is, I think you could preemptively cut Nestor Cortez and it wouldn't be. He's a streamer anyway in 12s and 10s, no?
Yeah, I would think so too. I think you're right. In a 15-teamer, I think I'm holding for at least the news this week. Like, I need something. Always give me 1 week of news if nothing comes out. So I'm doing that. Question in the chat about Matt McLean. We're talking earlier. If your only replacement is Joey Ortiz, who you're starting. Ortiz is going to Coors this week. I think that's a pretty easy one for me.
Ortiz slam dunk. Yeah, I'm a huge Ortiz fan as well. So you're adding my fandom plus Coors, easy slam dunk there.
Yeah, me as well. Just a couple of quick notes. Framber Valdez, his start Tuesday is now in question. Apparently he's dealing with some fatigue and a sore throat. So just check your news on that one. The Astros do play tomorrow, so it's a little bit tough. You got to decide tomorrow, but Framber Valdez is up in the air for Tuesday at Seattle too. You don't want to miss that start. That's a great place to pitch. Sandy Alcantara will not start Monday because he's going on the paternity list. We had
congratulations.
Who was that earlier? We had it was Devin Williams was earlier this week. We had the same thing. So yeah, Sandy will be out for a couple days. Belozo is starting tomorrow, but Sandy will pitch later in the week. So he's still going to want to start of that. Probably home against the Nationals. You're going to want that start anyway.
I'll take that. Even as somebody who respects the Nationals lineup, I'm taking that start all day.
You're still throwing that. Couple of quick activations. Both Josh Young and Sean Murphy are scheduled to be activated on Tuesday. There was some bidding for those guys. I had Sean Murphy available in my main. Since you put me on the spot earlier, I'm going to put you back on the spot. What would you bid on Sean Murphy in a main event tonight?
I'm still in on Sean Murphy overall. I think if I had the need, I think I could actually find triple digits if I thought that's where my league was going to go. Yeah, I'm pretty big. In fact, he went 110 in my league. That ended up being too high. So maybe if I'd have needed catcher more, I could have danced with the guy who did that because he went 110 against a 21.
Okay.
If I didn't have the need, if I was just kind of going luxury, I think I'd have been closer to the 60s. But I'd have been pretty aggressive on Sean Murphy. I didn't go for him in this league because I just kind of had other priorities.
Yeah.
But and I didn't need catcher. My two were fine. Like I could have gotten him. But I do like Sean Murphy. I'm just still reluctant to think he sucks. But I did favor my Austin Wells and Joey Bart ahead of him. So that still maybe tells you where I'm at.
I was kind of in the high 40s in a bid, and I didn't need a catcher, but I wasn't going on. He went for 75 in mine, so I was close, but not close enough. There was a backup 69 though, so it was pretty nice. Efficient bidding there. But he's scheduled to be activated on Tuesday. Let's jump into FAAB since we're kind of talking about guys. Hitters were interesting this week. There was no one big obvious set, unless you had Zac Veen available in your league. Obviously, there were some big bids there, but a lot of kind of lingering outfielders. We had Heston Kjerstad in Baltimore. Now that Cowser's on the IL, he was 65% rostered in main events. Obviously, way less so in the 12-teamers. Cameron Meisner and Jake Mangum in Tampa Bay. I keep wanting to say Magnum, but I know it's
me too.
It looks like Magnum every time I see it. But so 3 outfielders there. I feel like those are maybe the top bids on there. How do you feel about the 2 Tampa guys?
I'm pretty interested in Mangum here because he's running right away. He looks like kind of this do a bit of everything type of guy. Could be another one of these Rays finds. They seem to uncover these guys who can go on runs. Sometimes they turn into something legit. Sometimes they just go on extended runs. Obviously, he's not going to maintain a 529 BABIP. I don't really need to say that, but I will anyway.
Right.
But 3 steals already. I do like that. In the minors, he had 20 steals in 104 games last year. You're getting like an occasional homer. It's not that much, but I think batting average, runs, and steals could be here with Mangum. Meisner's the opposite. He's kind of what you see is what you get, and I think it's one of those pure power guys. I don't know that he's that different than someone like Kyle Stowers. He's just dialed in right now. He's got a 412 BABIP. So if you like that kind of Kyle Stowers guy, which I actually do, I like that sort of empty 20 homers. And by empty, I mean it's going to come with a bad batting average and probably low RBI totals. But I don't mind Meisner if that's the kind of need that you had.
Yeah, I like that Mangum doesn't strike out very much. He was like 17%
contact.
Meisner, I think, he's gonna have some big strikeout issues in the majors. I do think that it's one of those guys like when he's hot, you want to ride him. When not, you could get some ugly two-week stretch where he hits a buck 20, that sort of thing.
Totally agree.
They're interesting. They're just very different, and they're kind of lumped together because they both start with M. They're both in the Rays, but they're very, very different players.
No, I completely agree there. And so it was kind of like, which profile could you use more? That was really a team context-based sort of thing between Mangum and Meisner. I leaned toward Mangum, didn't end up getting him, but that's who I was chasing.
How do you feel about Kjerstad if he was available in your leagues? Are you a buyer here? Obviously, Cowser's going to be out for probably 2 months, so you should get a pretty good run for them to take a look at him here.
I would have gone pretty hot on Kjerstad. He wasn't available to me last week nor this week, but that's a guy I really like. I actually love Cowser too, so I've been a fan of both those guys. Unfortunately, chose wrong last year in a DC, and my buddy Greg never lets me forget about it when I said, no, dude, we got to go Kjerstad. He was like, I kind of like Cowser more, and he let me win that argument, and now he won't let me live it down.
Which one worked out better?
I think Cowser by a tiny bit. No, but this is Kjerstad's opportunity.
Yeah.
Let's see what he can do. He does have big strikeout. He's going to have to overcome that. And, 2 months is a decent run to show something, though. And if he doesn't, I do think he's going to kind of start to fall down a bit in the pecking order and maybe could even fall into trade bait this year if they finally decide to address their pitching.
Boy, they blew that last year badly.
Badly.
Where is Trevor Rogers anyway? Do we know?
I mean, and I know I keep saying I like everybody, but that's another guy I like where I was like, I can see the vision here, but he has to be in addition to something. He can't be like the answer, which he was last year. And then they did nothing this offseason except Sagano, who's pitching fine. But Sagano's a number 4, y'all. I don't want to hear it. He's a 4.
So we didn't mention before, but it happened earlier in the week. But Ketel Marte was injured, went on the IL with his hamstring injury. A couple of interesting Arizona middle infielders were available in some leagues. Geraldo Perdomo was available available in like 23% of main events, and he was only 12% rostered in 12. But Tim Tawa, who you mentioned earlier, was really good in AAA last year. He had like 279, 31 bombs, 14 stolen bases. You sound like you were in on this guy. You had him above someone else we talked about before. Were you in on Tim Tawa? I think it seems like the playing times there, they called him up instead of Jordan Lawler. So I mean that means something right there. But what do you think about Tawa? Because I look at the minor league stuff and doesn't strike out a ton. A lot of pop, hits for average. It looks pretty intriguing.
Yeah, and I know it's PCL, so it's inflated, but I really like Tim Tawa. He's never not performed coming up. Here in the high minors, which is double in AAA. We've seen big numbers from him. In fairness, he's been a little bit older for the level. He's 26 years old coming up, so there is some of that. So shave it down a little bit. That's fine, but you still see the fantasy juice there with power and speed capability. This is an organization that runs. They're going to let Tawa go. And he did get called up above Perdomo, which actually didn't surprise me. This is not a knock on Perdomo, but he needs reps, y'all. And yes, this is an injury where he could come up and get some reps at the majors, but I mean, he needs minor league reps. He's been stunted a little bit because of these injuries. So I wasn't surprised when they extended Perdomo, who I really love. Wasn't available to me, but I'm a big fan of his game. And now Tawa getting the call ahead of him. This is not an indictment of Waller, excuse me. They need him to get reps. They want him to get everyday burn in AAA.
Yep.
He's a second half guy for them. So Tawa was my second target to Kyron Paris. Paris went higher than I thought. I lost 42-34, but then I got Tawa 31-20, and I feel pretty good about that. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what he can do. And anytime I can get a piece of Arizona's lineup, don't forget, most runs in baseball last year. They look solid again this year. This is a good team, good organization. I like pieces of Arizona any way I can get it.
By the way, it led the league in runs last year.
Which is, I mean, hello, we don't instantly think that.
No, it still seems weird, but they actually led the league in runs last year. It was kind of wild to think about. Some of the chat asked about Dylan Cruz. If someone got dropped, should he pick him up? Yes, absolutely pick him up.
Absolutely.
We covered that before, but the other guy we talked about, we did talk about Zac Veen earlier when we were talking news and notes as well. I like Tawa too. I'm a little bit biased. He was a Stanford guy too, so I've rooted for him for a while. But I like to hear you say how much you do like him right there. You mentioned Kyron Paris as we were jumping in. That was my next guy to talk about. The playing time here, I think, is the thing. Like, he clearly he's running. He's got 4 stolen bases already. Yep. He was a big guy, stolen base guy in the minors. He had 44 in 2023 and 16 in only 60 games in the minors last year. It sounds like you had him over Tawa. What do you think about the playing time for Paris? I think if he plays, he's going to steal bases.
Yeah, and it's not there yet, but he played both games on the weekend. Now, that was after 3 days off, including a lefty. He himself is a righty, Kyron Paris. But come on, Yohan Moncada was why he played. We've seen some health issues there.
Can we stop with Yohan Moncada?
Kevin Newman, Tim Anderson. I mean, are these guys that really need to block him? I don't believe that Kyron Paris is necessarily good enough to play short, but if you can get the better bat in, and let's be honest, you're the Angels here. And hey, they're 6-3, they're playing well. I'm not saying they should be tanking stuff, but take a little bit of the defensive hit from Paris at short if that's the best avenue to get him in, to get the dynamic bat in. I think he's a much more dynamic bat than someone like Newman or even somebody like Tim Anderson. And if you have to bring in Nicky Lopez late for some defense because you're protecting the lead, I get it. I'll sacrifice the late plate appearance to get 3 every game from Kyron Paris because he should be a starter on this ball club.
I agree.
Even if Moncada isn't hurt long-term. I'm sorry. The ship sailed on a couple of these guys here.
Yeah. I hope the ship did not set on Mike Trout because, man, the league's good. The league's so much better when he's healthy. Man, he still mashes.
I got him in my second main.
I got him in my second main as well.
I'm not going to quit him. This is a guy that I still feel confident. And I know he's got 33. The age is escalating, but he'll still spike a 500 plate appearance season at some point. One more at the very least for us, and it'll be Troutian. I believe that.
Stole a base today, Paul.
Yes. I don't think he's going to play scared. Yes, he has injuries that are piling up, and it sucks, but I don't think Trout's going to go out there and play scared. He's going to play Mike Trout baseball, and if he gets hurt again, of course it'll suck, and he'll be upset, but I don't think he's going to sell himself short when he is healthy.
I had it on my list here, and someone else asked about it in the chat, too. They want to know what you think of Tigers' Justin Henry Malloy. He's let off twice this week.
Yeah, actually 3 straight days now.
He left today too. You're right, 3 in a row.
The whole weekend, including only one of those against a lefty, and he's usually a verse lefty type of guy. He can take walks. This team still needs OBP. That was a big issue last year, and still an issue this year. And he's getting on base at a 450 clip right now, thanks to a 30% walk rate. Now, he does straddle that line, Justin Henry Malloy does, of passivity versus patience. And I do think it tilts toward that passivity. He's kind of looking walk first, but they can coach that out of him a little bit, I think. It's a delicate balance. You don't want to completely flip a guy. Jack Swinsky was a guy that I think has that same issue, and he started to attack last year. It didn't work, and he got sent out. Now, I don't think the Pirates gave him long enough to kind of play through that new approach, but I kind of like Henry Malloy. It's probably better for actually his last name is just Malloy. His first name is Justin Henry, but I like Malloy. I do think he's a better real life player than he is fantasy, because I do think this OBP is what's sustaining him and going to be his calling card. There's not a ton of fantasy juice there. So I think it's deep leagues, AL only, that sort of vibe right now until we see a fantasy dynamic to go with the OBP, or of course OBP leagues.
What I really like with him is that he came up last year and played the half season. It was bad. He had 200. He had 37% strikeout rate. I like that he got that out of the way, because
we always get time in.
we talked about guys that get called up. Like that's going to happen to a lot of these guys. I do like that that's going to happen. And you're right. The walk rate has been insane throughout the minors. I mean, we're not talking 10%. We're talking like 18, 16% numbers. Like these are massive walk numbers. You're right. The passivity, tends to be more of a problem in the majors because you don't get as many guys that are going to be as wild. But I kind of like it a little bit here. He leads off a little bit. He's going to get on base. And the pop is there. I mean, 23 home runs in AAA in 2023. He can hit the ball far. It's just a matter of if he can control the strikeouts. I think he's kind of interesting pretty quick.
He can bring that pop to go. That'll be the fantasy tool that he can deliver. So if you're cool with a guy who right now is kind of still getting his feet, I think he had like 2 cross-country fights because he was going somewhere with Toledo and called all the way back to go to Detroit. In fact, Toledo was here playing Round Rock, which is International League versus PCL. So we went today actually in the freezing cold, I'll say. But it was fun to kind of see the Toledo Mud Hens here. So I think he was on his way to that. And they're like, nope, come here. They immediately threw him in the leadoff spot. And he said he couldn't really think. He was like a bit jet lagged, but he just got in the box, had a big day right away, and he's kind of off and running now. So I'm geeked. The Tigers are playing pretty well. Torque is popping off, which has me super excited. So, but I do like Malloy atop the lineup. And you're right. If and when he delivers a fantasy category, it is going to be some solid pop. Not crazy, but like you said, 20-something homer type vibe.
And since we're talking Tigers, Kerry Carpenter is as awesome as I think he is, right?
Yes, he's just incredible. If he stays healthy, I think he's a stud. I got him in both my mains and no regrets whatsoever.
Last hitter I wanted to ask you about, any love for Mickey Moniak in Coors?
I can't get there. I mentioned earlier when we talked about Veen, I'm always down for somebody in Coors. I'm always going to turn over that rock and kind of see what's what. And I'm reluctant to give up on number ones. I just mentioned Torque. I'm Casey Mize. I'm a Tigers fan. I still have some love for Henry Davis. I think with some of those other guys, we maybe haven't seen enough plate appearances yet to kind of make a full decision, or innings in the case of Mize. I think we know who Moniak is. I think it can be good at home, but it really is a streamer. And so if you have a room for an offensive streamer, that can be valuable in NFBC because we have the split lineups. So if you just want to play him at home and just try to take advantage of Coors, I can see it in a 15-teamer, but I'm not biting all the way yet until we get to probably too long because he'll be picked up by the time I buy in on Moniak.
And we mentioned with Justin Henry, I mean, that was a short stint of 37% strikeout rate. This is 920 plate appearances of 32% strikeout rate for Moniak. It's a pretty good chunk.
Coors can't fix that.
He's going to strike out a lot.
Now when you strike out that much, now you need the Coors BABIP. It's not a benefit. It is to get you to even, because every time you put the ball in play, because it's so rare, you got to get something to go through. So that's the scary part with somebody like Moniak, just going to have these crazy ups and downs with that kind of strikeout rate.
Let's talk relievers real quick before we finish off with some starters. There was kind of a clump of relievers that were like 70 to 80% rostered in the main event, so not available in many places. But in a 12-teamer, they were under 20%. Dennis Santana in Pittsburgh with Bednar getting sent down. Anthony Bender in Miami with Jesus Tinoco getting sent to the IL. And then, Detroit is kind of hard to figure out. We're talking Tigers. Tommy Kahnle. I always mess with his
Kahnle. You nailed it.
All right, got one finally. Takes a while, but he was about 80% rostered in the main event, under 15% in 12s. Were you in on any of these guys? I think that Santana is probably the most intriguing one because it seems to be his job right now. They, the first save out of the gate with Bednar, they used him in kind of a trivial situation. They used Holderman I think for the 8th, and then Santana for the 9th.
Yep. And then
today,
to the
today
IL.
was different though. Today Santana pitched the 8th and Baruki through the 9th and blew the save. But where are you on these three guys? It seems like they all have pieces of the job. Maybe Santana's the most with the piece, but Bender has gotten the last couple. Are any of these three guys you're super interested in?
I was pretty interested in Santana myself, but again, I came up very short. My league was super aggro on him, as they were with Luke Jackson last week. 148 to 112.
You mean Major League Baseball saves leader Luke Jackson?
That's right. I do mean that. And hey, I will say the last save, he actually looked like a good pitcher. The first three, he looked horrendous, and people still put in those big bids, which, hey, good for them. But I couldn't quite get there. But yeah, with Santana, that was my most interested one, but I was nowhere near. 112 was the backup bid, and I was down at a lowly $60 because I am hunting for a more stable second guy, and Holderman going on the IL was definitely part of that. Now I wonder who did Barucki face, because he himself is a lefty, and so it was Wells, Dominguez, Peraza. So that's lefty switch, and then Grisham after that. So that's okay to me. Oh wait, that's in the 11th. Hang on. When did you say? Borucki went? He went in the ninth. Then sorry,
he went in the ninth. He gave 3 runs to the Yankees in the ninth. It was
who did he face?
Peraza had a double and Grisham had a single, so it was that.
So that's
kind of
switch
part
right,
of the lineup. Yeah,
or switch left. Excuse me. And then
let's see. Rookie came in. He faced Jazz,
lefty.
Volpe, Wells,
right.
So lefty, righty, lefty. Dominguez switch, Peraza switch, Grisham lefty. So yeah, the situation there where you do want a lefty.
Yeah, it makes sense for him to have been there, but with Holderman going on, that I did turn my attention to Santana. Like I said, came up short.
And Santana faced Goldie, Bellinger, Judge. So,
and if you're not gonna, that's huge. Yeah. If you're not comfortable with a saves share that's going to be just whoever the matchup is for AJ Hinch, don't invest in the Tigers bullpen because that's what it's going to be. There's not going to be an A guy.
Do you think anyone gets to 15?
I don't really. Okay. I think he wants to play his matchups and based on like their arsenals too. So it's not just a right left. It's like what changeup, who's going to be susceptible to changeups? Okay, that's a Canely game. Who do you want to just overpower? That's going to be Brisky. Who has lefties? That's going to be Holton. Another overpower is Vest, who I think is in the mix. Brebbia, when they brought him in, they're like, we want another guy who can possibly close out a game. Which, hey, I love it as a Tigers fan. It makes sense. As a fantasy fan, I hate it, of course.
It's
so it's one of those things.
But like, it does make sense. You're trying to win games.
It makes sense, right? But that's how it's going to be. So manage to your own style. If you don't like shares like that, stay away from the Tigers bullpen because it's not going to change. Unless injuries strike and then a guy just kind of funnels his way to that job. But even then, I think he'd go to Brendan Hanafy and Brant Herter. That's the way Hinch is going to play.
And the key is none of these guys are Mason Miller. None of these guys are Josh Hader. Like if you have one of those guys, sure, you can you can get anybody out. But if you don't have one of those guys, and they clearly don't, they've got good pitchers back there. But nobody you just throw them out there against anybody like you would someone like that. It makes a lot of sense. It's smart baseball wise.
It really is. And so as a fan of the Tigers, I greatly appreciate it. Manage that way with your fantasy team and understand what you're getting. And I wouldn't have paid 147 for Canely, so I was happy to lose him. I wouldn't have paid the 91 backup because it's a share of a 4-headed monster. I think all 3 of those other guys I mentioned are part of that too.
So talking some starters, there weren't a ton of big names in starters, but you always need some starters. We talked Landon Knack a little bit earlier, but I want to ask you about Chase Dollander. He got called up by the Rockies, pitched pretty well today against the former Oakland Athletics, now just the Athletics. It's still weird to see, even the standings. There's no city on it.
It's just Athletics. It's so bizarre.
It's so strange, but he's been called up to pitch. Are you in on Dollander? He's obviously another guy, 9th overall pick, second we've had of those in 2023. Gotten a pretty quick rise up. Where are you on him? Do you think he'll stick around? Does the fact that he pitches in cores make you off him completely? Yes. Where are you on this guy that obviously is a big prospect?
He is a major prospect. He's very intriguing. I'm rooting hard for him, but you hit it. He's in Coors. Yeah. Coors is undefeated, folks. Yeah. Scott and I, we're a little older playing this game. And I know some of y'all in chat are too, but we got some young bucks. We've been playing this game for a long time. It just doesn't lose. Herman Marquez, remember when he had that great half season? They caught up to him. It always catches up. Ubaldo Jimenez had a full season. I think a full seam plus. And we thought, we found the guy. It was not him either. That park doesn't lose. Dollander's going to have moments. There's a deep enough league where it is worth getting him, and maybe even as a 15-teamer if you want to stream, but you have half a pitcher here, folks. You can't trust him at home until you see something, and even then it should only be like the Miamis and the Pittsburghs of the world, and even then you can still get burnt by that park because it's a BABIP park, and that is just uncontrollable, especially when your stuff doesn't behave the way it's supposed to. It'd be one thing if you play in a spacious park at sea level. Okay, well, hopefully your stuff's working. But when your stuff is also downgraded because of that park and it's a BABIP haven, it's just going to win out. So just be very careful with Dollander. You really couldn't get me paying more than $50. I know because he's a big name, it's going to go higher next week because he debuted today, so he won't be available in any main event.
Any main events, yeah.
And so it's going to be like a $50 bid for me, and if that doesn't get him, which it almost certainly won't, that's okay. But I will be rooting him on. I truly will. I want to see people succeed in Coors. It's remarkably difficult. He is nasty, though. I will give Dollander that. He's filthy. He's going to San Diego. And here's the thing. It's on Saturday, and if he goes and shows out in San Diego, those triple-digit bids are going to be off the charts, and I will be nowhere near them. Tipping my cap to Dollander on a big start.
You know who's leading the NL West, Paul?
Is it the Giants?
8-1, San Francisco Giants.
Look at those Giants.
The Dodgers, Giants, and Padres are now combined 25-5.
And I think the Diamondbacks are awesome. They're my World Series winner. And they're sitting there 5-4.
They're 5-5, hanging in there. But
yeah, or 5-5 today.
8-1, 9-2, and 8-2. These top three teams. The Giants. Wow. Giants are balling, man. They're playing really well. They have a different vibe about them. They used to be such a boring team for so long. They're fun right now. That NL West is going to be nasty. That's a tough spot.
They really do have some juice. You know, they're still old, but they have some juice there with Adames, Chapman, Young-Hoo Lee, and Patrick Bailey as and Elliot Ramos. Right? So that's fine.
I was going to say, I haven't seen Ramos hit a ball soft all year.
No,
I watched a bunch of their games. Everything he hits is hard.
He's my favorite of the bunch, so the fact that I almost left him out is terrible. Sorry, folks, I didn't include Tyler Fitzgerald because he's not coming to this party. He's not that good.
No,
but those other five are, and that's more than half their lineup now.
Yeah.
And the old guys they have are still competent. Late night Lamont gets on base like crazy. Yeah. Mike Yastrzemski, he's capable enough to play against righties, bottom of the order.
Nice oppo jack today off Brian.
Oh my God, it was beautiful. And then Wilmer's popping off right now. Now he's just in one of his Wilmer hot streaks, but that's still nice to see. And then the pitching, that was actually the one part of their team that coming into the year, I was like, ooh, I can see how this works with Webb, Ray, Verlander. And I know Verlander hasn't even been good yet, but if he can stay healthy, I still think he can be valuable. Birdsong was somebody I favored over Roop, but then once Roop won the job, I went right for him. I will say, I still don't believe in Jordan Hicks. He might make me look bad, though. He looked good.
Really good this week.
Very good. 2 starts in. He did this last year, though, folks. So I'm not falling for it yet. But if I'm wrong, that's fine. I'll eat the L, and then they'll have 5 competent starters with an interesting lineup that plays great defense. The left side of that infield, especially with Chapman and Adames. Oh my goodness. So yeah, this is actually a pretty compelling team. Now, I had them winning more like 80-something wins, but if they rise up, oh my God, they're going to make this even a bigger hell than it is already with 4 quality teams. And poor Rockies, they might immediately break the White Sox record and take them right off the hook the very next year.
I think the White Sox are on pace to match the record as well.
I know,
they're 2-7 already. They're slipping fast.
They are better than last year's team, but they're still bad though. So it's still going to be like 60-some wins, maybe even 50-some. But here's the thing: the team that it is right now is not what it'll be by summer. They're going to start calling the prospects up, and that's why I think they'll still win 60-something because this team will change. It'll have a makeover by the time summer hits, and they'll be much better.
Any love for this Chad Patrick in Milwaukee? Through today against the Reds, pitched really well, 5 1/3, 2 hits, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, 1 earned run. Has now made 2 good starts so far this year. He's up to 11 innings. Any love for Chad Patrick in Milwaukee, a team that badly needs some starting pitching because their entire starting everybody's hurt in Milwaukee.
Everybody's hurt in Milwaukee. I don't have that much love. What gives me a tinge is just that Milwaukee does this, right? They're Tampa Bay of the Midwest. They pull these guys out, and they don't always turn into something great. They are usually just flashes in the pan, but those flashes can last 75, 90, 100 innings. And it's oftentimes from guys that aren't that good. Now, Tobias Myers is one that I actually think is going to pan out to be somewhat solid.
Kind of a sneaky stash in some leagues. He's on his way back.
Because he's working his way back. It was not a major injury. But, the Wade Mileys, the Colin Rays, the Eric Lauers, they do this. The walk rate is too high to succeed for super long term if they don't fix it. But I did have at least a tinge of love. He was classic waterfall mention here for Jeff in his absence, but he was in the waterfall. I wasn't going crazy, but Milwaukee's earned enough credit for me that I'll take a shot on pretty much any of their pitchers, even somebody like Chad Patrick, who, let me be honest, folks, I don't really believe in that much, but I didn't mind stashing him and just kind of having him on the bench. He gets this week, let me see, he gets, he's going to Colorado. No. He's going to Arizona.
Arizona, but I don't love that either.
I don't love that much either. And that's so that's still a no start, but I don't mind him as just kind of sit on the bench and see where this goes. Because if he gets the walks down, it's more compelling. But right now, there's no sign that he will.
At age 36 in 2023 with the Brewers, Wade Miley was 3.14, 1.14, 120 at 30s. That's with a 16% strikeout rate. That's one of the more absurd seasons we've had recently.
Absolutely ridiculous with a 16% strikeout rate. So they make things work. Season. And don't sleep on William Contreras and his part in that. And their catchers in general. They've got a catching camp. They have clearly shown time and time again that they can turn the most garbage catcher back there defensively into a stud. Omar Narvaez was a defensive stud for them. So they take someone like Contreras, who's already kind of like middling. They raised him up to top tier, and that's a big part too. And they have good defense. So they have things that help their pitchers. Bullpen, defense, and great catcher. Yeah. That really helps you extract the most out of even middling guys like Chad Patrick.
William really needs this trip to Coors this week, by the way.
Yes, he does. The bat is sputtering. It's not in anything actionable, but it would be nice to see what your second, third, fourth round pick. He was going so high in the main.
So high.
It would be nice to see him get going. I couldn't get him. I was open, and I thought I was being ballsy going fourth round, and I got blown out of the water, Scott.
He was like middle second round, and by the time it was ending, he's got no RBI.
No RBIs, 4 runs, no homers, no steals. I mean, you're not expecting steals, but he got nothing going right now. The only thing that you can hang your hat on is that his BABIP is basically my weight at 136. It will come up. He's still got good plate skills. It's gonna be fine. It just stinks to see that from a second rounder.
It does, and it'll come around. It's you're a second rounder. You're like, I need to get something going here, but. Talking about some of these 2-start pitchers this week, there was kind of a group here that might be maybe throwable, maybe not. Matthew Liberatore in St. Louis is going this week against at Pittsburgh, home against Philly in his 2 starts. We got Hayden Wesneski for the Astros going at Seattle, home Anaheim. I really like that one a lot. He was more of a 12-teamer play. He was 64% rostered in 12-teamers. He's pretty much rostered across the board in the main event. Shane Smith, we mentioned the White Sox earlier. He's at Cleveland, home Boston. Tough 2-step there. We got Logan Allen, who I think actually lost his 2-step. But Ben Lively. I always say Blake Lively. Ben Lively's pitching Tuesday. So Logan Allen only has 1 against the White Sox now. Michael Lorenzen has 2 starts this week. Of this group, was there anybody that really stuck out to you like that? That's who I want to grab this week.
Absolutely. Hayden Wesneski were available. I'm very big on him. This is another organizational trust play. Houston, they get the most out of their pitchers. He's more talented than anybody like a Chad Patrick too. So it's a heightened version of what we were just talking about there, where I'm going to take a guy who's definitely a moldable ball of clay here. They have to do the work because he was pretty bad last year, but I believe in Hayden Wesneski. And at Seattle, home to the Angels, that's a slam dunk start. I would start him in 10s even for this one. I like Shane Smith too. Now, wins are going to be hard to come by just because he's on the White Sox.
Yes.
And he has to get Boston for one of them. So this is a little bit riskier, but this is more available in like a 15-teamer. I believe in the live arm. I can't say that I believe in the organization here, but I am excited by Shane Smith, and I am taking the gamble in a couple leagues. I have in both my mains. Only one I'm starting him though. The other one I don't really have the need, but the other I've had some injuries, and I'm taking the plunge. And my barriers for 2 starts are a little bit more open early on, thinking that I have the full year to kind of catch up. Now, that doesn't mean I want to take a bunch of beatings, but I trust myself to kind of figure it out if the things go sideways. So this is a risky one. Go in eyes wide open if you jump on the Shane Smith train, folks, but I'm going for it this week.
Yeah, it's funny how beating now, you kind of laugh about it. Like, I get 8 runs in like the middle of August. Those feel like death.
Yes. And you think about, and then you start thinking about him in September. Why did you go Shane Smith? Who the hell is Shane Smith? What are you doing, Paul? Another one I will say, by the way.
Somewhere Chase Anderson is laughing at me for this.
Yes. The Chase Anderson start. Oh my God, I know the exact one you're talking about. Do you ever have these players, Scott, that like you're just in on by yourself, but you don't want to tell people because you don't want them coming on board with you? Not because you're hiding them, but because you're like, this guy actually sucks, but I just like him. That's me and Matthew Liberatore. Like,
okay, good.
Don't follow me, folks.
I'm in this one with you, so I'm following along.
It's like I can't quit him yet, though. And Cardinals Devil Magic is still kicking. There's still some embers of that burning. That's a good park to pitch in.
None of that was burning this weekend, though.
No, not this weekend, and not really last year either, especially with the pitching. But I'm going to give Liberatore a shot. I have him in 1 league. It's at Pittsburgh and home to Philly. Philly's tough, but give me him in Bush. And if it flops here, I'll jump off, but I'm just a sucker for Matthew Liberatore. So I want to be clear, this is not a full recommendation to everybody. If you're jumping with me, understand that we're Thelma and Louising off of this cliff.
Paul, Ken Rosenthal just tweeted, Vlad Guerrero in agreement with the Blue Jays on a 14-year, $500 million extension.
He got his 500.
Yep.
Wow. Good for him.
It is.
And good for them signing him. You know, I'm all for the players getting their bread.
Me too.
Like, Vlad's a G. I know he's first base, so there's no defense. Who cares? This dude could hit over 300 with 300, 400, 500, which is that classic triple slash line. He could do that for like a 5-year run and nobody would blink. This guy is a generational lifer type. I love it.
And I'm glad it was the place that he started where he's playing.
Yes.
Like, I don't need more guys like this going to the Mets or Dodgers or something.
Exactly.
I like when this happens. That's fun.
And I think it makes sense for a team that signs a guy that they brought up that they can look back at this and say, hey, we got him for a $51 million value by WAR, if you believe in the dollars per WAR, when we were paying him like $8 in 2021,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So they can look at it in the aggregate and not just have to earn $500 million this next 14 years, which he might do.
It's the Brock Purdy example. It's the same thing. Like you've made so much money off him already, you're going to lose in the back end, but you gained so much at the front end.
Exactly.
Yeah. So a couple of questions before we get out of here. We've had some people asking about what do you do with pitchers facing the Dodgers this week? So we've got
run.
Run is the answer, but we got Mackenzie Gore. He is home against the Dodgers, then at Miami as a second start. You got to throw that, right?
You gotta. Yeah. There was somebody else this week that had a 2-star, and I think it was Grant Holmes who actually got burnt.
Boy, did he got burnt badly, because now he missed the start against Miami because it got rained out today.
Yes.
Now he goes next week and gets one against Philly.
Absolutely brutal, but that's baseball in a nutshell. It's absolutely frustrating, but no, it is aces only, except in a 2-start exception, and I think Mackenzie Gore is one of them because he's flashing his upside right now too. You take the shot at home against the Dodgers, hold your nose, but you got to get that at Miami. So I'm starting Mackenzie Gore anywhere really.
So then, what about Matthew Boyd? One start against the Dodgers, has not given up a run yet this year. Paul, are you running from this one?
That's a fair question because I have him in one of my mains, and that's where Shane Smith is starting.
Decided your lineup live on air.
Well, that's who Shane Smith is starting for.
All right.
So I'm saying no here. Yeah, I think it's aces only.
I think I'm running on that one too.
I gotta run.
Justin Steele's a yes then, right?
Yes.
Home Texas at the Dodgers.
He's a fantasy ace to me, and you get a 2-step. I ride Justin Steele whoever he's pitching against.
Cubs Dodgers next week's a fun little series.
That's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm excited for that.
That's a good one. I was at Dodgers Braves on Monday night. Man, that park is jumping. All those people out there who say LA fans show up late. I showed up an hour before the game. Couldn't find a place to park.
No,
and the parking lot there is massive. By the way, too, it's freaking huge.
And they have really pushed that stereotype
in the back. It's people are there an hour and a half. It's crazy how many people are there, and this 51,000 on a Monday night. The place is jumping. It's wild.
This team is special, right? Like you get to go out and watch so many superstars. Yeah, I understand that that's like a stereotype about them, but they are not living up to that stereotype. Nor should they. They should be getting out there. They should be drinking in every bit of this team. I mean, this is like, I know it was a different city. I'm not saying it's the same as the Warriors in the same city, but this is that type of team. It's just so electric. You can't miss any of it. So I am not surprised that they drew on a Monday night even.
Yeah, it was John. Every time Ohtani comes up to the place, just like buzzing. It's crazy.
Electric.
Anybody else starting pitcher wise you like? You're the starting pitcher guy that I go to all the time. Is there anybody else out there? Any sneaky guys you liked? Anybody that maybe we haven't discussed? Anybody that you can think of that you were maybe sneaking in under the radar? Now that FAAB's over, you can mention it on the air.
Well, this one wasn't FAAB, but just with the 2 steps, I think I'm still gonna be pretty hot on Mize despite getting the Yankees.
Okay.
Because he gets the 2-step. It's kind of in that Mackenzie Gore vibe where I'm like, it's at Minnesota. It's not quite as good as the second one, the way Gore gets Miami, but I'm believing, and I'm a Tigers fan, so some people are going to say he's a biased Tigers fan. I understand if that's how you feel, but there are tangible changes here with Casey Mize. He's tapping into what made him a #1 overall pick. So I'm taking the shot this week. I told you my barriers are more open on 2 steps early, and this would be an example of that. As far as pitchers this week, I did find it very light outside of. I was trying to get back Mitchell Parker. I felt okay dropping him because I dropped him. This was before Ginkel got hurt, but I dropped him for Ginkel, and I need a second closer. And I really think that when he's healthy, he's going to wreak some havoc there for Justin Martinez and AJ Puck managers because they can use those two as the firemen 6th through 8th innings, and then they got a perfectly good Ginkel just sitting there in the 9th. So I ended up cutting Mitchell Parker because I knew I wasn't using him for his first 2 starts. Well, turns out he pitched pretty well, so I tried to get him back. So I was back in on him. Liberatore I mentioned, but other than that, it was a light week. I'm not on Kohanowitz. Kohanowitz couldn't strike us out, and I'm sorry. I know you brought up that great season that
I made good contact in high school, so I don't think
right.
I don't think I'm getting a hit, but I'm putting the ball in play.
I was a Jeff Mathis, so I was terrible. I couldn't hit. I could only catch defense, but I'm still putting some contact on the ball from Kahanowitz because he just can't strike anybody out. You know, he's not going to pull the Wade Miley here. I did like Thomas Harrington, and I liked buying him cheap off of the dud. Yeah. We are such overreactionary players here in fantasy. We see a prospect who comes up, flops on his face, like, that guy sucks. And did he get sent back out yet? Because I knew he hadn't coming into the weekend, and maybe he didn't. No, I still don't see where he got sent back out. So I think they're running a 6-man right now in Pittsburgh. I don't think Carmen Machinsky should have a spot over him. So I liked Harrington because I knew he was going to be cheap. He ended up going 11 in my main because of the bad opener. And I think he's a pretty good, he's not Bubba Chandler and Skeens, and he's not quite Jones, but I think he's like a small tick below Jones.
Okay.
Whereas Bubba and Skeens is, of course, you know, as high as I can go, but then Chandler's really good, and then Jones and Harrington are like here.
Tanner Houck was dropped in my main event. Would you have been aggressive on that one or not really? I was kind of mildly aggressive, but not aggressive enough to get him.
That's probably where I would have come out. I would have been intrigued because draft capital and FAAB capital are way different to me. Yep. Draft, I wasn't touching Tanner Houck. Now you're talking about a quote-unquote free pickup, and it's not free. You're paying some of your capital. But a pickup where I'm not spending draft capital, I would have been there, but I probably would have got, what did he go for?
92.
Yeah, I would have been more in the 60s again.
I think it was 50s, 60s, somewhere in there. Andrew Heaney was also available in my league. I had Heaney above Houck, believe it or not.
I would have too. I'm a big sucker for Heaney. He was
love how he looked the other day against the Yankees.
He was a sneaky late pick for me too because he lined up for the Marlins first, and he didn't take full advantage of it, but he certainly wasn't bad. And then the revenge game against the Yankees, obviously I wasn't starting him for that, but that gave me a lot of confidence. I love Heaney. He's a good pitcher. He's always due for a DL stint or two, but the biggest issue that he has is homers, and PNC should at least be able to mitigate that some. I'm not saying he won't give up any homers, but at least they won't be as plentiful in PNC.
I was not pleased that Phil Dussault, who obviously is a phenomenal player, ended up with getting Heaney for $49, back above 47. So I think that.
Oh my God, so sharp.
Jose Alvarado was available in my second man too. What do you think the bid is on that one?
Like 180 if he's in my league.
254.
There you go.
Way high. 180 was the backup. So you're right in the right range. I have two closers, so I wasn't crazy on him. I was in the low ones, I think, which I didn't think would get him, but you got to get it in the mix there a little bit.
For sure. I think I'd have pushed on him. I've been a little tepid. Like I said, Jackson went crazy last week. Yeah. Although I don't think I'm tepid for not going. Well, sorry, Jackson was the one where my buddy Greg told me he was putting 123, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of close to him. I put 107. The winning bid was 122. If I'd have just copied him.
Oh my God.
If I'd have just copied, he's like, why didn't you go there? And I was like, I was close enough to you. I thought it was all right. But yeah, I am desperately seeking a second closer. Like I said, I couldn't get to 148 on Santana or 147 on Canely, but I would have gone high 100s, and it wouldn't have gotten him in your league, but I'd have gone pretty hot on Alvarado. I think he's the dude.
Is your buddy Greg Martin?
Yes.
Oh, I sat next to him in the event in Vegas.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Greg's my guy.
Really good dude.
We talk FAAB every week.
He was the one who took Chris Bubich from me.
Oh, there you go. I'm not surprised because
I'll just blame you for that now.
Yeah, we've been big fans all off season. Greg's great, excellent NFBC player. I talk about him all the time. This is the reference that'll hit with you I believe you watch Seinfeld, right? Yep. Bob Sacamano. I was always comparing him to that, and then I brought him on the pod, and I was like, see, it's not a fake person. It's not a Bob Sacamano situation. He's awesome. A real dude, and he's a great player. I love talking ball with him.
Yeah, he took Edwin Diaz right before me too, and he's wearing his Mets hat. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, you could have known that one was coming.
I was like, I call that a snipe because I deserved that one. I knew that was coming. So, well, Paul, appreciate you jumping on. We've got a little bit long here, but talking to you is always fun. You're one of the best people talking baseball that is out there in the fantasy world. One more time before we jump out of here, let everybody know where they can find your great work.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky, both at Sporer. That's Sporer. On Fangraphs, the fantasy side, fantasy.fangraphs.com. I do my daily SP chart, which I'm going to go right now.
Nice.
With a 2-start chart on Mondays as well. So look for that. Sleeper in the Bust podcast 3-4 times a week. Actually 5 when you include the Justin and Jason episode on Sundays. And yeah, we're getting in the thick of it. You and I were talking about getting back in our baseball routine.
Yep.
The fire hose is on, baby. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, last week was kind of half fire hose, and this week was like full go. Like I sat down today, I'm like, oh, I actually have to this is like real FAAB now. Last week was kind of half FAAB. This is real stuff.
Go time now.
Yeah. Last week I drafted like 3 days before we did. I'm like, this is easy. I can figure this out. But this week was full go. So, some of the chat asked about Tyler McGill. I love Tyler McGill. I drafted him in both mains. We talked to him a bunch. Not available in any leagues that we're talking here, but
in shower leagues where he's available, I'm bought in. I'm bought in on Griffin Canning too. I was in on and Peterson, the trio. Yeah. I was in on all three. So if they're available in your leagues,
Peterson today he just got sick in the fifth inning. Pitched really well, and then he apparently was just nauseous. I thought he was hurt, but it turned out he was just just not feeling well. So hopefully that one will right itself pretty quick.
All got great matchups next week. Miami for McGill and Athletics for Canning and Peterson. Even though it's in Athletics Stadium, I'm still taking both of them.
Or whatever. Are we calling it Athletics Stadium? I don't even know what we're calling it.
Sutter Home Park. I'm sorry.
There you go. It's so weird. On the RotoWire pitcher chart, Ath is like the second team now.
Yes.
I keep scrolling down to.
It's got me totally messed up.
Literally cannot find their matchups. It's going to take me a while.
I go to the O's every time.
So cool. Well, Paul, thanks for jumping on. Always a lot of fun. I want to thank everybody for listening. There's a ton of questions in the chat. Sorry I don't get to everything. I try to hit as many as we could as kind of we were talking, but really appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate everybody that listens to the audio version coming up when you listen to it tomorrow morning too. Thanks for that. Hope it has a really good week, a good fantasy week. We'll back at you next Sunday night. Take care, everyone.
Peace.